The next night, as we were approaching our camp, our walk was interrupted by a misfortune. Really? So you guys just smooched, and that was it? You smooched off camera, left me in the lurch, and then you just went about your day. Okay. Saito! The color in Saito's face had all but left, and he began to gasp for air. Again? Oh! He dug his fingernails into his chest, grimacing from the agonizing pain as sweat began to cover his fragile frame. Well, we're old hands at this. Saito, here, drink my blood! Saito, as usual, shuddered at the thought, and he turned to look away from me in a discomforted fit. So I did it myself. Like I had done previously, I unsheathed my kodachi and made a small cut just underneath my ear. There you go. Saito quietly held me closely, bringing his eager lips to suck at the small droplets of blood emerging. This guy is such a... I don't know what word I'm looking for, but he's constantly like, no, it turns me off, I don't want to do it. And then as soon as she makes the cut, he's like eager. He just belly flops back and forth. So funny. His warm, tingling tongue traced the path formed by the slow trickle of the falling droplets down my neck. After a panicked moment, Saito's breathing finally began to calm, and eventually it normalized. I tried to step back to give him some room, but as I moved, I felt his hand tighten on my shoulder. Then he coolly whispered into my ear as the cut underneath began to seal itself. Okay, well at least he's being a little more forward about this now. It's not just gonna continue and make her go, you okay?
A little longer. Please, let me linger for just a moment longer.
His words were so gentle and sincere. Okay. I gave him a small nod and I leaned myself against him. Aw. You goobers. It was the night before our departure for Shirakawa Castle. I had spent a peaceful night in a room all to myself, thanks to the Aizu's military generously renting a house for our accommodations. Although our own chances for victory were dwarfed by the size and weaponry of our adversaries, for some strange reason, I felt no fear or worry. Perhaps it was because I had already accepted the fact that our backs were against the wall. Or maybe it was because I was given a chance to remain beside the man that I love. Oh, there he is.
Yukimura, it is time for you to rest, is it not? Staying up all night may exhaust you, which may lead to you collapsing during our march tomorrow.
Well, look who's talking to who about resting. Well, why don't you rest too, Saito? Saito reacted sheepishly to my suggestion, and he turned away, blushing.
It troubles me knowing that the amount of time we have to spend together may be waning. Would you laugh if I had said that I do not wish to waste a single moment with you by sleeping?
Aww, why would I laugh at that? That's so sweet. No. I shook my head. I feel the same way. Sleeping right now seems impossible.
Indeed.
Saito's response was short, but even so I could tell there was a weight and sentiment behind it. The room was filled with a nervous silence, as if we both lingered on the cusp of saying something more. Ever since we had separated from Hijikata and Nagareyama, Saito and I had seen numerous skirmishes with the Imperial forces. I became aware of our thin chances of survival. Hope became a hollow gesture. This uncertainty made each moment we had shared all the more precious, and we savored every single one with aplomb as our hearts willed it. I glanced cautiously at Saito. He stared outside of the window silently, watching the scattered stars glimmering above. Saito, do you enjoy looking at the stars? My question prompted him to gaze inquisitively at me in kind.
Why do you ask?
That night in Kofu, you were so entranced by the stars that night as well.
Your interest in my behaviors is quite peculiar.
Well, yes. I have loved you for some time now. The words came so naturally from my mouth. These feelings of attraction had stewed in my heart for such a long time. How had I not realized it? Saito merely blushed and shrugged his shoulders.
It is not a starry night alone that captivates me, but also sunsets, rainbows, and the sea.
Starry nights? Sunsets? Rainbows in the sea? Saito seemed to be mouthing off random phrases, and I cocked my head in befuddlement. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. Those are all beautiful scenes. It seemed as though none of these things had anything in common, but... Saito stared once more outside of the window in admiration, as if it were a bright, sunny morning.
The vastness of our world contains wonders of which I will never grow tired. The night sky, the sunsets, rainbows, and the sea. Watching the world's majesty unfold so beautifully gives me hope that all of the sorrow and anguish it gives birth to will someday dissipate.
Ah, you have a point. Every time I had found Saito stargazing, it seemed he was reflecting upon his own self-doubts. His heart always seemed so heavy. The timing of his reflective mood was understandable, and his melancholic gaze was quaint beside the window.
For myself, I viewed Kondo and Hijikata's lives as another one of the world's majesties as well. By following them, I could never go astray. I believed they represented something larger than life, which imbued me with hope amidst my anxieties.
I sat up and I walked toward Saito. Saito, are you feeling anxious right now?
Why do you ask?
Because Kondo and Hijikata... Neither of them are here to offer any words of guidance or support for you anymore. Saito reached his hand over to mine and clasped it kindly.
I feel no loneliness. I have you beside me.
He smiled. Sayato's words were touching, but... Are you sure? When you're stressed, or if you're in pain, or if you're stuck wondering if you've made the right choice, do you trust me to help you and be there for you when you need me? For Saito, both Hijikata and the Shinsengumi provided an irreplaceable system of support. I had no confidence whatsoever that I could fill any of the roles that either Hijikata or the group had given. In response, Saito gripped my hand tightly. He began to entwine his slender fingers lovingly with my own, which at first was a little awkward, but it was an adorable gesture nonetheless. That's our bean.
All that I ask for you to do is love me. This alone is everything I need. Allowing you to witness me in a vulnerable state is something I cannot permit.
Oh, Saito.
Until my life is forfeit, I must honor my duties as a warrior. Having you here with me, my mind is put at ease immediately. So, it needn't be of any concern to you.
I see. Like always, Saito's calm reassurance comforted me. For as long as he would have me, I will stick by him. Even until the very last second of my life, I will do whatever he asks of me as long as we are together. It was deflating, however, to think that these moments were numbered. If anything, I recognized this as an opportunity to ask him about things I had always wondered. What should I ask him about first? Well, the future is unknown. I want to learn more about this boy's past. Oh, yes. Saito, do you remember this? I pulled a small charm from out of my pocket. At first, Saito gazed at it absent-mindedly.
I do not. I cannot recall ever seeing it before. What is it?
I opened up the charm. Inside of it was a pressed cherry blossom petal. I'm like, what is this in reference to? I forgot that she saved a cherry blossom petal when he left the Shinsengumi way back when. Oh, this goober. Although its color may have faded, you could still make out the rosy image of what it used to be.
That is...
Saito fell speechless and his mouth was agape in surprise. At first, he held his breath and his hand shook as he reached out to touch it as if he had witnessed an apparition appear before his very eyes. Within the charm was the flower petal that Saito had given me before leaving the Shinsengumi to join the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb. Now, I don't care what anybody says. That is romantic right there.
You kept it this entire time. Is this the very same blossom petal from all those years ago?
Yes. Well, not exactly. It's dried up quite a bit, and it's not in the best of shape. Behind Saito's eyes, I could see a flurry of emotion whirling through him as he stared at the petal. I watched his lip quiver ever so slightly. I had known him for so long now that he didn't even need to speak for me to know what he was thinking. You do read this boy like an open book. Aww. This was a nice memory to share. I'm glad I picked the past. I didn't realize we were sharing, like, a memory together. I thought she was going to ask him about more of his past. But, you know what? It worked out fine.
Such a symbol of everlasting beauty. And who knew that it had been under my nose this entire time?
Saito let out a satisfied grin. Huh? You mean this flower petal? But it has wilted so much. Oh, you dummy.
I speak not of the flower petal itself. It is clear to me now that the sentiment behind this petal has been preserved all this time, unchanged. One would assume, perhaps, that if the sentiment has survived this long, it will remain into the future.
I think Saito was fighting back how overcome with emotion he may have felt. Then he closed his eyes and handed the charm back to me.
Thank you, Yukimura. What a splendid thing you have shared with me.
Oh, it's no problem. Watching Saito beam with such delight filled me with happiness. Silence fell between us once more. Bright white clouds covered every inch of the sky. Our evening together, it seemed, had come to an end. However, Saito and I found ourselves unwilling to budge. His hand was still gently coiled in mine, and our bodies were leaned against each other. After a prolonged silence, Saito glanced over in my direction before whispering softly into my ear. Yes?
Yukimura, I wish to make you a promise.
Huh? A promise? What is it? Saito kept his stare fixed on me.
No matter the circumstances, I will protect you with my life. This promise comes not from the Shinsengumi, or Hijikata, or from the Aizu. It is a promise that is delivered entirely of my own volition.
His tone was hushed and faltering, but within each word was a force of resolve and purpose. Saito was making this vow to me! Knowing that he had assumed this responsibility, and went so far as to call it a promise, made my heart flutter. Yet it was difficult to respond at first. What response could I give after he had poured himself to me? Hajime, giving me all the feels. My hands were trembling, but I reached out to him. I wanted to be as close to him as I humanly could. I wanted him to know how much I loved him. What you do? Ooh! Initiative! Yeah! Thank you! Thank you! I felt so gypped last time! You put the teeth on the teeth. I don't care. You gotta work on those closed lip kisses. But thank you. I feel so much better. I was so disappointed last time about the kiss. I'm like, I want to see it. And then Chizuru comes swooping in to save my day. Thank you, girl. Oh. A bold move, perhaps. But sometimes, when words fail us, it is best to take matters into our own hands. I love you, Saito. Saying it comes so easily. But showing you is something else altogether. I hope that, as our mouths were connected in the throes of passion, he knew everything I'd wanted to say. As our lips parted, this was my only wish. This poor boy. He's confounded.
Why did you...
Shh. Don't ask.
But...
He attempted to gather his breath and reattempt his question, but then he fell silent. She just shushed me. A long silence, mine, that I had expected. Throughout our pause in conversation, my cheeks were still flushed with color. So I took his hand once more. Oh, well, aren't you being very bold tonight, Chizuru? Why don't we go to bed?
Yeah.
Our hands were still entwined. Sayato's cheeks were red, and I led him to the futon, into which he carefully made himself snug. Oh, these guys are great. I saw a playful grin curl in the corner of his lips, and it made me smile in return. That was great. That was just wonderful. I loved everything about that whole scene. That's been the highlight so far for this route. The next day. Excuse me. Hold on a second. I need some water. Okay, there we go. The Aizu domain had sent a scouting troop to survey the area around Shirakawa Castle, but contact with that troop had been quickly lost, which was an ominous sign for all of us. Saito and I were assigned to leave for Shirakawa in order to uncover any details about their whereabouts. We had made our approach to the castle stealthily, but both of us had an eerie suspicion that something was off.
How strange. Not a soul within sight.
From what the Aizu officials had told us, all of the Imperial Army troops were stationed within the castle, but it was conspicuously silent around the entire castle, and it was peculiar to think that there was no activity in or around the castle when we'd arrived. As we expected, there was no sign of the scouting team, which was worrisome to say the least. Just then, a rustle in the bushes startled us. Saito immediately clasped his hand around the hilt of his blade, drawing his attention to the rustling bush.
Yukimura, get behind me.
Okay. I hid behind Saito as he directed. He held in a deep breath, channeling all of his focus to listen for a sign of what the sound could be.
It is not an animal. Those footsteps came from a man. 2 or 3, I believe. Our scouts would have sent word if they had made it to the castle safely by now. Which can only mean...
Saito's grip upon his sword tightened apprehensively. Wherever these footsteps were coming from, they were stepping closer and closer to us. Without a second thought, Saito unsheathed his sword and swung fiercely at the approaching stranger. However... Shin?
Oh!
The stranger reflectively parried Saito's blade, which must have meant they expected our arrival. The hairs on the back of my neck stood as the moonlight cut through the thick layer of fog, exposing the stranger. It was... I thought that... I'm like... I think I know that head bandana anywhere. So we did run into you guys eventually, just not when I thought we were going to. What the hickey hey are you guys doing here?
God damn you! Didn't know you Imperial bastards would be so damn tough. Wait. Huh? Saito?
Nagakura! As soon as Saito realized that he'd attempted to strike at Nagakura, he sheathed his sword.
Oh, Shinpachi. It's you. What are you doing here?
So... Saito said that there was 2 or 3. If it's 2, it's Shin and, Sano. If there's 3, who's the third one?
Dude, right back at ya. Why the hell are you going around attacking people without looking? Jeez, man. Always gotta watch my neck around you.
Nagakura, what are you doing here?
We're... Hey, Shinpachi. Who the hell are you talking to?
That voice! It was?
Oh, hiya, Saito. That really you? What are you doing here?
Harada, you're here too?
What is the meaning of your business here? Explain. So hear us out. I came with Sano to Aizu to fight against the Imperial Army. Remember those Furies we fought in Kofu? We saw them, so we followed them out here. We were doing some reconnaissance when we saw some of the Fury Corps entering Shirakawa Castle. Seems like Shirakawa Castle's already become the hornet's nest for Furies out here.
What? If there were Furies here, especially of the ravenous variety we'd seen in Kofu, then so was my father. Just then... Hello?
More footsteps. This time there are 4 or 5 of them.
Saito reached for the hilt of his katana. Alright! I'm so glad we've got some buds. We got some old friends here. This is great. So too did Nagakura and Harada. All of them were ready to move at the drop of a hat. Suddenly, shadows leapt from out of their corners onto the path. Soaring to such a lofty height was far beyond the capabilities of a human jump.
The Furies have arrived! Time to feed them to my spear!
The Furies charged at us with katanas that were sorely lacking in range compared to Harada's spear, which he had been twirling with glee. Nice. I hope you guys have learned how to fight Fury since the last time. Harada reflexively thrust his spear into the chest of an incoming Fury, an act followed by the eerie sounds of mangled bones and blood splattering upon the ground. Ah!
Damn, just a little bit off!
Harada's aim had seemed to just barely miss the Fury's heart. Okay, he realizes. Which meant that its wound would heal itself soon, as if nothing had happened at all.
Yo!
Off to the side, Nagakura thrashed his sword wildly at the crowd of Furies, hoping to sneak a swipe in.
Damn it! Fighting these guys is such a pain in the ass. Nailing them in the heart is impossible.
Wouldn't it be easier to just cut their heads off?
And even if you get them, they won't bleed out because they just heal before you get another hit in.
In spite of his outburst, Nagakura had a small, sly grin on his face. After dodging the path of an incoming enemy's sword, Nagakura viciously swiped the Fury's unguarded arm, and the hiss of flesh splitting cracked in my ear. Saito caught this act in his peripherals.
Such a wasteful British display.
Unlike Nagakura's frenzied technique, Saito moved with finesse, striking at each of the Fury's vital points before their bodies piled atop one another. He's doing it so slowly, too. Gah! The desperate, cacophonous shrieks of dying Furies echoed boorishly throughout the forest. Despite their enhanced speed and strength, the Furies still suffered from amateurish swordsmanship. Blech. They were no match against the skilled precision demonstrated by Saito, Nagakura, and Harada.
So, looks like we took care of him for now, eh? Good thing there weren't too many. If we were surrounded like we were back in Kofu, then we could have been here for hours.
Nagakura wiped the sweat beads dripping down his brow. Then an unexpected voice startled us.
Aizu is...
From underneath a pile of dismembered carcasses, one of the Furies murmured a low groan. Haven't heard one of them actually talk until this point.
Still alive, huh? Well, no point in letting it suffer. Wait, he may have something pertinent to say. His mind may not have given way to madness just yet.
Yes? Saito stretched out his arm to stop Nagakora, and then he cautiously approached the Fury. The Fury struggled to catch his breath as his lungs were becoming crushed by the weight of the other bodies. Saito looked him in the eye and spoke curtly.
Just now, you spoke of the Aizu. Tell me everything you know. No funny business either. You might be a Fury, but you probably know by now that you've got no chance against the three of us.
The soldier nodded with displeasure and began to speak.
They're running experiments on Furies over in Shirakawa Castle. After one of their sessions, they told some of us that they'd kill us since we were obsolete now. When we tried to escape, we started to feel real strange, if you know what I mean.
Who are you? Are you a member of the Imperial Army?
The soldier shook his head languidly.
We're no army men, sir. Just civilians hired by the Imperial Army. The Imperial Army started recruiting farmers and merchants to join, so I volunteered to serve. If I'd known all of the horrible things they'd been plotting, I never would have joined. But that mean old son of a bitch. He made us drink this red syrupy stuff.
From the soldier's description, I assumed he was speaking about my father.
Every time they sent us out in one of those deadly battles, one by one my comrades would go mad. In the end, we were done for. They've no use for us.
Hearing the sins my father had been committing made my stomach turn. I was speechless.
Hey, you mentioned something about the Aizu. What are those demons planning to do?
That old man plans on moving his experiments over to the Aizu domain, since they were the ones who originally owned Shirakawa Castle.
With each word spoken, the soldier's sunken face became more pale, and he couldn't breathe without wincing. Then something terribly strange occurred.
I don't want to die. I never thought I'd turn into a monster and lose my goddamn mind. I never anticipated this.
He stretched his fingers out towards the sky, but I could swear they were turning white before our eyes. It was almost as if they had been lit ablaze from inside and deteriorating at an astonishing rate. Yeah, you've gone black and white, man. I'm like, oh gosh, is this how we find out about the crumbling to dust? Well. Soon, the tips of his fingers resembled the end of a burning incense, his flesh charring into crumbling ash. At the end of this display, only ash remained.
What the hell just happened? His body just disappeared. Kinda strange. I don't know if I've seen anything like that happen before if we stabbed him in the heart or shot him with a silver bullet. Does that mean there's even more that we don't know about the Furies? Well, let's haul ass to the castle. If what he said is true, then the warriors in Aizu are in danger, right? War is breaking out in Aizu. I don't doubt that they're hoping to finish whatever experiments they're working on right now to roll out those spankin' new Furies.
Right. Everyone nodded in agreement, and we all readied ourselves to rush for Shirakawa Castle. Saito, however, stood firm as if he weren't joining us. He's gotta process this. Saito, what's the matter? We need to hurry. His eyes drooped to the floor and he began muttering to himself.
During our time in Kyoto, and even until now, there are countless men that I have slain and killed. This sword here is drenched in blood. It is not my place to cast judgment on their actions, especially with their wanton disregard for human life. To an outsider, murder at the hands of a warrior may be no different than a dangerous experiment gone awry. At the end of it all, blood has been spilt needlessly. However, Some evils cannot be undone without another evil to destroy it. My heart has condemned those who create furies, and as such, I promise to destroy those demons who do.
A tenacious fire emerged behind Sayato's bright eyes. His glare alone could have killed a man. After staring angrily at the ground for another moment, he finally looked up and faced me.
Apologies for keeping you. Let us go.